Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back, Jim.
Ross, yesterday the Bank of Canada gave a speech to credit unions in Winnipeg, and Poloz claimed the Bank of Canada research suggested the housing market had flipped not because of B20, the stress rule, but because of house price expectations. Was he right? Poloz also says he's looking at perhaps allowing longer-term mortgages.
Yeah, it was quite the speech he gave there. I mean, the guy's genuine, the guy is likable, and I believe the guy really believes what he is saying. But in this specific instance, he was quoting a report that was done by the bank, and if I'm not mistaken, it was something about detangling factors driving the housing market, but they didn't use the word housing market in this abstract. They used the term resales. So that should have sent out warning signals to anybody who's going to read the report, because there is no such thing as resale housing data in Canada. There never has been. There never will be. Canadian Real Estate Association releases MLS sales stats. That is a commingling of resale existing homes with new home sale data. It could be a new home sale that is far off as 5 years in some cases. It is not resale housing counts. Resale housing counts, the Bank of Canada, the people who did this big report for the Bank of Canada, clearly do not understand that the percentage of brand new homes included in the resale count increases as the housing market slows, and it decreases as the housing market gets busier. That's because the builders rely on realtors only when they need to. They don't rely on them when the houses are selling themselves. So that skews all of your data when you're using Canadian Real Estate Association data or any local real estate board data, which they included in that report. The conclusion of the report was this. All the provinces are strongly correlated with house price expectations. So they were saying that the house price change recorded from 2015 to 2018 was a result of a correlation between what the home buyers expected house prices to do in the future. We would say hogwash. False. You have no data to support that. There is no survey ever completed to support that. You have guessed once again. You have guessed because you can't read the data that you have available to you because you think CREA data is resales. The listeners only need to go to the CMHC housing portal to find out that CMHC no longer calls MLS sales resales. In a conversation with the chief economist with CMHC, he believed the CREA reported resales until we told him otherwise, and we proved it. As such, all of the charts have been changed since 2015 on CMHC. They no longer say resales. They now say MLS sale. What Mr. Poloz didn't understand, Jim, was that all the change in the housing market was trending towards the negative way back as far as 2015. 2015 for British Columbia, 2016 for Ontario. A full year, of course, before peak house prices were reached. What Mr. Poloz also doesn't understand was, on November of 2016, when the first B20 regulations were announced by Mr. Rudin to come into effect, the housing market immediately began to contract. This contraction is recorded in data with 100% accuracy and alignment with Mr. Rudin's announcement. A secondary change to the housing market took place on January the 1st, 2018, when the second part of B20, that affecting trade-up buyers, came into effect. The contraction at that time escalated. What that means to your listeners is this. Those record house price gains claimed to have taken place in Toronto in the spring of 2017, they were a result of B20, because B20 in the first phase removed first-time buyers from the housing market. The share of sales going to first-time buyers in 2017 in Ontario was decreasing. Obviously, when the share of first-time buyers decreases, the share of trade-up buyers increases, because it's got a total of 100. That means house price inflation escalated in the spring of 2017 in the Greater Toronto area, only because first-time buyers quit buying, and more trade-up buyers were still making the trades that had started months and months ago. That's the exact same thing that happened in British Columbia in 2016, by the way, folks, in Vancouver. That's why the housing market in Vancouver rolled over in March of 2016, not July of 2016, like this report cites, and like all reports that have been produced by any bank or economist or realtor also cite. They are not reading the data the way that the data was created. So, Mr. Poloz yesterday made that comment. He said that the reason why housing prices started to drop was because consumers, home buyers, believed they were going to be dropped. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks.
So, Ross, in other words, if I just want lower prices, I just have to wish for it, and there they are.
Exactly that's really what he's saying, Jim. That is how bizarre that statement is. You can look at it any way you want, but that's exactly what he's saying. The question, Jim, is, why did he say that? Well, the question is, he believes the Canadian Real Estate Association releases resale data. He believes the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver in April didn't count March sales in their April totals. They didn't undercount in the month of March. That's what he believes. He believes everything that organized real estate has told everyone over the last 70 years. And it is simply a joke. It's false. It is information, marketing materials created solely for the purpose of generating real estate commissions for the members of the Canadian Real Estate Association. Now, and I can tell you, when I was a member, Jim, of the association, I demanded that of my leadership, because I paid a monthly dues to make sure that that was being done. I didn't want them to do anything to harm my business. Now, I didn't want them to lie to the public, which is the reason I decided to leave, but I also didn't want them to do anything to harm my business. In other words, if you don't have something good to say, keep your mouth shut and just don't say anything. This report is yet another false report generated from real estate myths. If the Bank of Canada had called me and said, hey, Mr. K, we understand that you have different metrics than we use, and you use data where you claim to be using data, and everybody else you claim to be using stats. Can you show us in November of 2016 where the first B20 rule changed the market? I could have pulled out the chart, and I could have showed them the exact moment in time when the market changed, because we calculate numbers weekly. Now, I could also tell them, if you go back a year before that, you can see here a year before that, while the market was already contracting, and that you really didn't need to institute B20 at that time. You could have waited till the crash took place and then instituted at the bottom of the crash to prevent the next bubble from not forming as large. But of course, they didn't do that either. Now, could I have told them, Jim, without losing our IP? I don't know. I would have had to really have thought about that. I could have told them a couple of other metrics that they could have used, because when we're making a comment about the market, we don't just look at one metric. We're looking at least a dozen metrics from the buyer side of the housing market to analyze what's going on today and what's going to go on a year to 2 years from now. We don't use real estate sales from organized real estate because those are trailing indicators. We do not use real estate prices from organized real estate because those are trailing indicators. We do not use HPIs from Terranet National Bank or the MLS HPI or average selling price or median sales price, because they're all just trailing indicators. They're recording a market that is a consequence of decisions that were made a year to 2 years ago. We're measuring those decisions because the market cannot act any differently than what the decisions the consumers made. Prices are not strong. The housing markets are not strongly correlated with house price expectations. Housing prices are strongly correlated with the sales chain, the sales mix, the amount of mortgage that people can take on, and then how recently they purchased a home. Those are the things that dictate a housing market. And in aggregate, they explain a whole housing market. What that explanation tells you, Jim, is that entire report should be flushed down the toilet. The flip side was the second part of your question. Should governments have longer mortgages? In other words, should Canadians be taking out 10-year mortgages versus 5-year mortgages? Now, I'll say the second part of his discussion, Jim, was more complicated than that. It was more nuanced, because I believe he was saying things that he was intending to say without coming right out and just speaking in black and white terms.
And I wonder, when he says long-term mortgages, remember you could amortize your house for 30 years and then they dropped it to 25. Is he talking about that, or is he talking about the actual mortgage? And what about comparing Canada to the U.S.? In the U.S., you take out a 35-year mortgage. It's a 35-year mortgage. You don't have to worry about renegotiating and so on. It's for the whole term that you're buying the house. And can they shorten that term if they make biweekly or weekly payments?
Okay, so the Canadian-American discussion is a big one. Like, most Canadians believe that the 30-year mortgage rate in the United States is a mortgage rate. Well, it's not. You also have to pay points in the United States. So there is a premium you pay at the initial time of taking the mortgage out, which multiplies your total interest payable over the course of a 30-year term. That's another discussion. The American home selling infrastructure, home trading infrastructure, is built around a 30-year mortgage term. The entire infrastructure to buy and sell homes in the United States is built around that standard. In Canada, ours is built around the 5-year standard. 5-year term is the most common term taken out for the last 40 years by homeowners and home buyers in Canada. What Mr. Poloz is discussing was, well, we have 10-year mortgages available already. Can we do something to lower the interest rate on a 10-year mortgage? Can we do something to create a 15-year mortgage where the interest rate would be attractive enough that people would take on that added risk of getting a 15-year mortgage and watching interest rates fall? He was discussing, can we make changes? Well, those changes he's talking about would not happen at a Canadian bank. And maybe that's why he gave this speech at a credit union. Because what he's effectively saying is, this is how we interpret what he said anyways. An aging demographic of homeowners in Canada means there is a tremendous amount of home equity that will be available when homeowners begin to leave their homes. The safest and best use of that money is for the next generation of homeowners. In other words, in the old days, 1970s and 80s and 60s, there was a technique called a vendor take-back, where a new buyer would buy your home and you would hold the mortgage. They wouldn't go to the bank. It would be a privately held mortgage by the previous owner. When I started in the business, those were still being done. It was rare, but they were still being done. My parents had both participated in doing hundreds of them. I think what Mr. Poloz is realizing is that if there's $2 trillion in home equity that is available to come out of the housing market over the next 20 years as homeowners retire and they seek retirement residence, that probably means there's about $1 trillion available that would not be spent. In other words, the people will downsize but up quality their retirement homes. They're going to buy a smaller home that is of a higher quality than the one they're in now, at about 50% of their equity situation. So he's probably seeing that $1 trillion. And he's probably seeing the returns that we're getting on money at a bank right now. You know, interest rates of 1%. Well, nobody can retire on a 1% annual rate of return. But when you get up to the 3 to 4%, all of a sudden, that creates a great opportunity for an annuity through your mortgage. So I think what he's really saying is, Jim, he went to the credit union and he addressed them. I think what he was saying is, look, you've got all of this home ownership wealth that is going to be coming out of the market over the next 20 years. And we can either take that money and put it in a bank account and get 1% interest, and what that would effectively do destabilize the housing market and the economy at large, or the new set of home buyers that are entering the market, maybe that money could be used for them. It could be loaned to them to buy the existing homes. Because what that would do would be to stabilize the housing market and lower the risk while providing a win-win situation for the next generation of homeowners and the previous generation of homeowners who are divesting of their real estate. That's what I read, and that's what I read into what he was saying. Whether that's what he was saying or not, I don't know. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that's what he was saying. I think what he was saying is, it's time for Grandpa and Grandma to lend a first mortgage to their grandchildren for 4% for 15 to 20 years. Those kids have a great opportunity then to not be experiencing 6, 7, 8% interest rates as the interest rate cycle goes on the upswing. The grandparents get an opportunity of getting a little bit extra interest early in their retirement, and then having the interest effect be not as strong later in the retirement when the demands for the money are not as strong. That's what I think he was saying, Jim. It just didn't get reported that way in the press.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, figures released by the real estate industry claim that in Greater Vancouver, April to April sales were down 29%, whereas in Greater Toronto, sales were up nearly 17% April to April. Were these honest numbers?
They were honest stats, Jim. They were honest stats. In other words, what they were counting and how they counted it, those were the results that they ended at. The truth of the matter is this. The Toronto and the Vancouver housing markets are moving in the exact same trajectory. Their markets have moved identically. There is not a single fluctuation in change between those two markets that is not identical. Now, you have to read the data differently for Vancouver than you do Toronto, because those two housing markets were structured differently when they entered their contraction phase. The Vancouver market entered its contraction phase substantially earlier than Toronto's. The contraction bump that Vancouver experienced. Remember when those sales were increasing, yet we were telling everyone on the show, don't worry, this is a contraction bump? It's hit Toronto. You also have an anomaly in housing stats in that 2013, the year 2019, has only been repeated once in the last 6 years, way back in 2013. That means comparable months, April to April, you can only compare April 2013 to April 2019, because those 2 months have the same trading days and reporting days available to the members of organized real estate. In Vancouver, because the month of April ended on a Sunday, that meant that, the month of April, hold on here, Ross, let me get your calendar back here. The month of April 2019 ended on a Tuesday. It ended on a Tuesday. That meant Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday were all days that sales for May could still be reported in April. When we go back to March ended on a Sunday. March ended on a Sunday. So the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of April are all days where the local real estate board could be reporting March sales still. The real estate board gives realtors 5 days to report a sale. Yet, on the 2nd, they came out with the March sales report. That meant all the sales from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th that took place in March, but that were reported in April, were added into your April sales total. So, of course, in Toronto, where this anomaly is bigger than in Vancouver, you see a bigger shift in your sales. That's why you get a negative sales one month and a positive sales the next month. And it is a complicated calculation at times. So let me leave this with your listeners. 28% of all sales in a calendar month can get reported in the month previous or the month following. Up to as much as 28%. It's why you can't use monthly housing stats. It's why they're not called housing data. It's why they're called transactions reported through the Real Estate Association between the first and the last day of the month. It never talks about sales. The second line of a press release from organized real estate mentions sales. The first line always says transactions. It's a bait and switch. It's why the public believes you can't time housing markets. It's why the public believes house prices go up or down in 30 days. It is hogwash. It is nonsense. It is factually incorrect. Now, you have to be able to read the footnotes. You have to be able to interpret the footnotes, and you have to go back and look at historical perspective on the footnotes. In the Toronto market, in April, there was a massive change to the stats reporting of the Toronto Real Estate Board in Ontario. And it was a massive change. Yet, it's been silent. No one has reported it. They didn't report the private for sales that started to be counted in 2013 and escalated up until 2015. In other words, private for sales to take more and more market share, reporting share, and the same as they didn't report what happened in April. Now, I'm telling you in the show, there was a massive change to transactions reported to the Toronto Real Estate Board in April. It was a change in what was being counted.
So Ross,
I'm not going to tell you what it is. Because I'm going to give them 60 days to come clean.
So Ross, it would be like in hockey stats, they only recorded goals and first assists, but then all of a sudden they start recording second assists so that in 1 month it looks like a whole lot more points were being scored by players.
Exactly.
When in essence the game was exactly the same.
Jim, look, it's a little bit different in British Columbia than it is in Ontario. So in British Columbia, your real estate boards don't cross over. So you're not going to have Fraser Valley Real Estate Board reporting sales in Vancouver. You're not going to have the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver reporting sales in Fraser Valley. The sales reps will overlap each other. They'll gladly sell you a house wherever you want to buy a house, but the stats don't overlap. In Ontario, no. The stats overlap. In Alberta, the stats overlap. The stats overlapped until 2015, which, again, because we, Ross K. Realty Consultants, caught the real estate boards of Edmonton and Calgary misreporting Edmonton sales in Calgary, that they had to change their MLS system rules. So now, the following month, in 2016, they made sure that the Edmonton sales were reported in Edmonton and Calgary, which caused another 2 years of faulty housing data to result. In Toronto, in 2013, Comfree, Common Sense Network Brokerage is what they became in 2013, joined the Toronto Real Estate Board. And they started to report their sales for the very first time in history on the Toronto Real Estate Board. And they reported their sales for all of the GTA. They actually reported all of their sales from across Ontario in the Toronto Real Estate Board. That inflationary factor, which multiplied when Property Guys got their brokerage license and Property Guys started reporting their for sale by owners in the Toronto Real Estate Board, and other real estate board members started to take private for sales, which is how in 2015 they hit their record sales count, which messed up all of their housing stats. Even their average selling prices were all skewed because they no longer included the commission function in a purchase price. These sort of things go on change in organized stats all the time, Jim. It's why you get misinformation being reported to the public. Now, it takes someone years or decades of research and understanding how a housing MLS infrastructure changes, reports, revises, creates definitions, changes the definitions to be able to read the stats. That's why if you see a chart produced by a realtor or an economist or an academic anywhere in Canada that goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, it's because they can't read the sales stats properly. Our charts don't look like that. Our charts have a linear progression that is perfect.
We'll have more with Ross K., where we ask the question, should first-time buyers buy now or should they wait even longer?
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. So, Ross, the question being, first-timers with prices declining right now, should they wait longer?
Should they wait longer? Okay, so actually, that is a good question. I've been posted so many times over the last couple of weeks, Jim, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked it. And that has been the focus of my business for 30 years. Because if I got a first-time buyer to buy a house, inevitably, every 8 to 15 years, they were going to buy another house from me, as long as I did a good job for it. So first-time buyers, they really are an important thing to me personally and to my business. We have decided, because of first-time buyers, that we are revising on the wealthy homeowner, the programs. So we are now going to be offering programs for specific instances when you're involved in a housing market. So there will be a first-time buyer program. Prices aren't going to change. It's just that it's going to be available, specifically a program for them. Because the question you're asking me really can only be answered on an individual basis. So I'm going to give you an answer anyways, but the listeners out there, I want them to know that every single first-time buyer is different. And this is not some gobbledygook marketing commentary here. This is simply the truth. If you're a first-time buyer and you're dealing with the Bank of Montreal, or you're a first-time buyer dealing with the Toronto Dominion Bank, your home buying situations are totally different. If you're a first-time buyer buying in Vancouver, or you're a first-time buyer buying in Langley, or you're a first-time buyer buying in Calgary, or you're a first-time buyer buying in Hamilton, your circumstances are totally different. Those housing markets are all functioning today in a different manner because their trading cycles are all different. Their housing stock is composed differently. The municipal rules and regulations are all different. In other words, you buy in the city of Toronto, you got to pay a municipal land transfer tax on top of a provincial land transfer tax. So all of these things add up to what the type of advice you should be giving someone. You shouldn't be giving a blanket statement that covers everybody, because even the bank you're dealing with, or if you're dealing with a mortgage broker, changes the advice you should be given about when you should be entering or not entering the housing market. Overall, in Canada today, Jim, I would tell anyone anywhere in Canada, you should not be entering the housing market at this time. You should not be entering the housing market at this time. Now, if you are in a part of the country where house price appreciation is taking place below the 25-year historical pattern, there may be an opportunity for you to get into the market at that time. Notice what I said. If the prices are growing at below the historical rate, that I am not saying house prices are falling to buy. It's two totally different things. If your housing stock is growing, which artificially creates house price illusion, you have to be careful. Because as a first-time buyer, you are entering in the lowest quality houses in the neighborhood, no matter what. Even if it's a brand new, beautiful condo, but it's at a first-time buyer price, quality is measured in price. Okay, quality is not measured any other way. How much house can I get for my money? That's including the land, the building, blah, 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 blah. So first-time buyers, wherever you are unique. You need advice that is geared specifically to you. Now, the way that advice is going to be rolled out is identical for every first-time buyer in Canada. It just means it needs to be tailored to your specific situation. In other words, if you're looking for a house, and I tell you, well, wait a second, if you leave the Bank of Montreal and you go bank at Toronto Dominion Bank, we can get you a home that is $20,000 more expensive. with nothing else changing, just because you change banks. If we tell you that if you don't buy in Langley, if you buy in Vancouver, we can get you an extra $30,000 of a mortgage with nothing else changing. Same down payment, same income, nothing else, same credit score, nothing else changing. If we tell you you want to remain at the Bank of Montreal, you want to buy in Vancouver or Toronto, and we can get your credit score increased by doing A, B, and C, then you can get an extra $30,000 worth of mortgage. And that may drastically change the quality of home you're able to buy. Because this is what the listeners need to understand in terms of buying a house with quality. A very small change in price moves you from one quality of home to another. Most people could handle another $100 a month under the current B20 rules. So in other words, you go to the bank, you qualify, okay, great. You still have enough flexibility that if you can borrow more money, that you can handle it readily. If you can jump a quality of home, it may save you one home trade down the road. One home trade has an effective cost of about $150,000 over your lifetime. There is a reason why you want to reach as highest quality as you can under reasonable terms when you buy. So, first-time buyers, right now, what should you be doing? You should be building your down payment. You should be filling your TFSA as much as you can. You should be expanding your RSPs as high as they can, so when it comes time to buy, you can pull the full amount out that the government allows you to withdraw, with the understanding that you're going to repay that over the 15-year window that they have it. That's what you should be doing right now. You should not be entering the housing market because people tell you, oh, there's a lull in the market, it's time to buy. Oh, house prices are going to go up in the fall. Buy now while prices are right. There's more inventory to choose from right now. These are all myths. These are all falsehoods. They were created years, decades ago by realtors in order to sell houses at times when houses were tough to sell. They were never designed to be used as a truthful representation of when you should get in and get out of the market. First-time buyers, nationwide, this includes you, Quebec, you should not be entering the market at this time. You should be watching the market, monitoring the market, and getting yourself in a situation that when the time is right, you can act. You need to be doing all that within the confines of I'm going to say a program. It doesn't have to be a program. Within the confines of a program that directs you, leads you in that direction. Because only then will you not make a mistake. Only then will you save the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 30 to 35 years through home ownership.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
And thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.